Let's focus on you. Basically, some basic questions about what brought you to the decision to run for this office.
What brought me to
In
the
other words,
decision
you had to perceive a need. You just didn't wake up one day and say, I think I'll do this. It's like I'm going for pizza. But
well,
what led you to say, I'm going to run for the Supreme Court?
Well, first of all, I think we need to God bless America again. And I'm running to restore the faith in the fairness of our justice system for the people, their lawyers, and other judges.
Mm-hmm. What particular attributes, your skill set, let's say, that you've developed to this point qualifies you for the job of a justice of the Supreme Court?
Well, I've been in the trenches for Minnesotans, fighting for their individual justice for 27 years.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen what's developed over these years is we have, quite simply, our justice system's developed into a cookie-cutter system with no humanity or individualism in it.
Okay.
Because I've been a small claims court judge for 15 years, aside from my private practice, and a referee in family court for 19 years, I feel as if, and now a Supreme Court candidate into politics, so to speak, I feel that my calling is to expose and bring to light the injustices, and I might use the word corruption in our system of justice.
Okay. Could you, without causing yourself any sort of litigation with regard to, ruining somebody's reputation or saying something on the radio that we shouldn't, what do you mean by the corruption or the injustice that's within the system that you intend to correct?
Well, the first piece is the lack of due process, and I know that's a legal word, but let me tell you what due process starts with. It starts with clear rules, and our rules are not clear. Some of our laws are written like Shakespeare. You can't understand them, and they should be as understandable to Minnesotans as a traffic light. Red means stop, green means go, and yellow means slow down.
Mm-hmm.
And not be as complicated as they are. They are not clear. In fact, the family law book has 1,600 and some odd pages of laws relating to families who are breaking up or someone who is losing a child.
Losing a child through the legal system.
Yeah, the juvenile justice system.
Okay. So you're saying there's too much small print?
It's small print.
So that the person...
Not small print, it's actually large print with a number of provisions that incorporate a number of other provisions that incorporate several other provisions that I call our law, particular our family law, a quagmire for the people.
Okay. And what I'm taking from that, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, is that if a person tried to get through the Supreme Court justice system, there's probably a path that they're going to be put on, as you said, cookie cutter, and at the other end, it's almost a predictable outcome based on... Mm-hmm. Is that what you're saying? And if it is, say it back to me so that I can use your voice, not mine.
I am saying yes. In the first instance, starting with the way the laws are written, due process is violated. Now, due process starts with clear rules.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The next step in due process, and you're going to like this, and this is what I've seen in what I could call corruption over and over and over again, is government adherence to those rules. That's the second step. So before you even set foot in a courtroom, these two vital pieces of due process have to be adhered to. Do you know what I mean by government adherence? Government adherence would be, for instance, law enforcement. They're part of the government.
Okay.
And they are not to break rules. They have to adhere to the rules. It goes like this. If the name of the game is break a rule and citizens pay, it should not be the case, which is often the case, that government can break many, many, many rules to make a person pay for the breaking of their rule.
Would you go so far as to say, basically, once you're in the system, you're screwed?
Once you are either in the family court system, for instance, mostly that's voluntary. People go into family court and they're actually suing their spouse.
Right.
And a lot of people don't realize, because we use kind words like petitions and agreements to orders, they don't realize that they are suing each other. We are litigating families. Millions of families are litigated in the country each year.
Okay. And how can you, one person, fix that or change that?
First of all, by education. We need to be have critical thinking about what's happening in Minnesota and our country. And we need to, if we've seen, if justice starts in our homes and then our communities and then our workplaces, that's where justice needs to be. You don't find justice in the courts necessarily. For instance, I started to say this and I lost my train of thought. In family court, we should be going to family court if we are deprived of our property or our children, so that they can support and help us constitutionally, and not to be deprived of our property and our children. With all the infighting, in other words, it's the same pot of money that's being divided. Parents are supporting their children. If you define support, for instance, as providing a home, food, clothing, all the necessities of life, and security, and we're being deprived of our children and supporting them by what's most important, which is love and companionship.
Okay, so what I see on your website, and again, I'm not going to use my voice, just your responses, is that hundreds of law-abiding citizens are coerced into a system of guilty and pressured to prove their innocence. It's exactly the opposite as to what we were taught back in school in civics class. Is that right?
Yeah. We are living in a culture of a presumption of guilt. Just read the paper. Just listen to the radio. When somebody is charged with something, they look at the police report. There is no presumption of innocence anymore. That is pretty much non-existent in our culture. Also, one real important piece that I learned is that in America, we jail more citizens than in any other country. And what America has developed into, in particular Minnesota, and in particular some of the counties, is that into a debtor's prison. In other words, if you don't pay your bills, you end up in jail. If you don't pay your child support for whatever reason, even if there's financial hardship in doing so, automatically you are deemed, even if the child's being supported, and children are in family court are always supported, deemed deadbeat and readily, and I mean readily, thrown in jail for non-payment. So we've created debtors' prisons, which were outlawed over 20 years ago.
What is the key reason or reasons that somebody should vote for you on November 4th?
Because I am... I'm going to expose the truth. I'm going to be authentic about it. I'm going to speak my mind and see what I see and have seen over the course of my 27 years in the legal system. And I want to reform the justice system in Minnesota and hopefully around the country. When, again, my goal is to be on the United States Supreme Court.
That's your long-term goal?
That's been my long-term goal since I was a kid.
Okay. So your next step is to win a seat on the Minnesota Supreme Court as a justice, and then to get to the federal Supreme Court in Washington. Do you run for that office, or are you appointed to that office, or what's the procedure
You're
there?
appointed to that office by the president.
Okay.
So my next step...
Your next step is to prove yourself as a Minnesota Supreme Court justice.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I also have experience over many years of filing appeals, writing briefs. I appeared before the Supreme Court of Minnesota. I also had 5 cases I was involved with in our Minnesota Supreme Court, which is unheard of because only a scintilla of cases get there when I was endorsed by the Republican Party.
Okay. Do you? I'm trying not to embarrass myself or you. I feel like there's some friction between you and the Republican Party. You were that happened at the fair.
Yeah, the friction. I got caught in the crossfire because, and this is what I mean by authentic. The Democratic Party endorses judges. They endorsed Lilliehog, but they didn't do it at their convention because calls are going out there from the Democratic Party to vote for him. The Republican Party has a movement to, in effect, not endorse judges. So I just got caught in the crossfire. Most of the Republican citizens of Minnesota want to know where their judges stand. They want to. The judges should not be a mystery. And I got caught in the crossfires there. As a good Minnesota citizen, attorney in good standing, a mom, a wife. So that's what I mean by politics. It's not truth. It's perception.
Mm-hmm. Interview continued on part 2.